before it starts blabbling. All right. Howdy, everybody. And
hello.
Thanks for joining us for the Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Got a whole bunch of people. Howdy, Doc. Howdy, Marla. Howdy, Ivan. Howdy, Heather and Gary. Howdy, Yahushua's Messiah.
All right.
Howdy, Erica.
What's up, everybody?
So thank you very much, Landon, Colby, Ashley, Lynn. Really glad you all came today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. I'm sorry that I didn't have drinks or snacks.
Not cool.
All right. So talk to me. Who's got something? Let's start all the way back at Numbers 8 again.
I've got something for the end of it, but I'm gonna wait because it's
For the end of Numbers 8 or the end of.
Oh wait, that's right. I'm still turned to the end of the page of 12. So yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna definitely wait.
Coffee's good for you, man. Howdy, Dana. All right. Something I was looking at, just to recap, because we've been over this in the past, but 7 lamps, right? 7 lamps in the tabernacle. And isn't that also what we see in Revelation?
Yep, it's also mentioned in our passage in Zechariah.
Yeah, in Zechariah also, yep. Revelation 1:12, and I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. So it's got to be the same. Got to be the same ones. That was the first thing that jumped out to me for 8. Chapter 8, Numbers chapter 8. And also 8 verse 7 is especially poignant for all of the people screaming, "Men never shave." Well, wait, what's that say right there? Right? And thus shalt thou do unto them to cleanse them, sprinkle water of purifying upon them, and let them shave all their flesh. And let them wash their clothes, and so make themselves clean. So we got, not being disrespectful, but some people that resemble more salamanders than teddy bears.
Yeah, that kind of jumped out to me too, because I was thinking of just the different references to hair in the Bible, like when it Esau, but that's just his name meant red and hairy. But Samson, like his hair was his strength, and so I don't know, I don't have a point to it, but it just made me think that did jump out at me. Why is God saying to shave, to prepare yourself for cleansing? I wonder what that means.
Right, and this is the Levites, though, not necessarily the priests. So anybody going into that tabernacle, I think it was last week or perhaps the week before, talking about how the Levites are like the assistants to the priests. The altar boys. My apologies.
No,
But it's something most people can relate to these days.
it made me think. I'm like, well, you got to wear a hairnet when you're working in the food industry, but I don't think it's got to be something more than that. Like they're preparing the sacrifice for God, but it's not. It just made me think that. But on a serious note, it's got to be something more than that. Like,
Well, because I think it's because hair holds on to bacteria and stuff.
Right.
I mean, to be clean, you want to be kind of smooth.
And if you think about it in context, they'll be dealing with sacrifices and whatnot. So the more hair they've got, the more you're going to trap that kind of material.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
If you're coming before the Lord wants them clean, and so it's just the most practical way to make sure they're kept clean.
It is. Like Landon was saying too, wearing a hairnet, like they're bringing all these sacrifices. If you don't have hair, you don't have to wear a hairnet. I'm sure we've all been to the restaurant where you have the person wearing the hair cap, and then they got one on their beard too, hooked over their ears.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, that's the bad thing about living with all women is I get blamed for beard hairs in the water jug.
Well, we don't have beard hairs.
What else? We got anything else from chapter 8? Yep. Like Doc says, it's not just ritualistic, it's actually healthy cleanliness. Think of removing body lice or other things.
Okay, yes. It's true.
I found the retirement pretty cool. I mean, I think we'd all love to be able to retire at that age. That's like a real blessing. You know, you still get to work and minister and fellowship with your brethren, but it's your duty is you know what I mean, it's passed on to the next generation. So I think that's really cool. Yeah.
Yep, retirement age, that's a good way to look at it. If you look at the requirement for the men of war, it's a different age range. It's ages 20 and up. But for the service of the Levites, what is it, 30 to 50? It's a short time period. Well, 20 years being short.
I wonder if that was a high stress job. I mean, I wouldn't think, but I'm just like,
I would think so, because if you look back at how they would be struck dead if they touched like any of the utensils, if it didn't have badger skins on it or whatever.
man.
You know, they're probably walking on some eggshells there.
Well, if you look at it, I mean, a group of people are just dedicated to that job completely, which means this isn't meant to be a job that's just for a kind of a part-time job. This is you're gonna commit yourself to this because it all has to be done the right way at all times.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
It's your life, something you live, and that can be intensive.
Yep. It's like you said, if they do it wrong, they can be struck dead.
Yeah, my ex-husband works for American Express, and he works at where they have all the machines that run all your credit cards and stuff through there, and they have breakers the size of doors. But if you mess up, they've got pictures of guys just disappearing and just a pile of dirt there, you know, because they messed up. So it's kind of like that. I can imagine how intense it would be because, yeah.
Right. So I got a question for everybody. somewhere. Okay, in verses 16, 17, 18, talking about for the Levites are for the service of the tabernacle. For they are wholly given unto me from among the children of Israel, instead of such as open every womb, even instead of the firstborn of all the children of Israel, have I taken them, the Levites, unto me. For all the firstborn of the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On the day that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified them for myself. And I have taken the Levites for all the firstborn of the children of Israel. Does that mean, basically, he's setting these people aside so you don't have to give your firstborn child dedicated to the tabernacle service or temple service?
Kind of sounds that way.
Yeah. I mean, verse 18, and I have taken the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the people of Israel. Now, clearly, that's this translation of it, but I mean, based on this translation, it sounds like that's kind of the trade-off. I'll take the entire people instead of the firstborn of all of Israel.
Yep. That's what it sounds like to me. So, kind of different skew, different view from what we're always seeing and hearing. Marla asks, how about electricity? Talking about shaving everything off the person's body. Can it be so that the electricity, which may be in the tabernacle due to the presence, does not make them all buzzy? Like static electricity?
That's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. That's interesting. And off the top of my head, I forget, what were the Levites supposed to wear while they were in the service of the temple? Does anyone remember?
Linen. Wasn't it linen?
I know it was linen for the high priest and priests.
Oh,
Yeah, it very well could be, to keep everything the same frequency. Let's see. Yep, it is linen. Ezekiel 44. So not only are they shaved, they have linen upon their heads, linen breeches on their loins, shall not gird themselves with anything that causeth sweat. Goodness. So good call. Good call, Lynn.
yeah, linen is good. It hangs on to all the cleaning and maintains itself and it breathes.
Yep. Now this, I was wrong. It's from the Levites do their service from 25 years old up to 50. So it's a 25-year term.
20 and 5 and up.
Very neat. All right, what else do we got? Anybody get anything from chapter 9? That's the one talking about the Passover and second Passover.
Yep. So I mean, I think it's so you clearly have the Passover where God's commanding everyone to honor the Passover, but clearly there's those exceptions of those who are on a long journey or those who are had to deal with they're unclean because they had to touch a dead body or move a dead body or whatnot. So he gave kind of a, hey, this is for all of you who couldn't do it the first time. Gives them that option. It's just interesting that he gives that option, and it's, I mean, yes, there's a set of rules. He wants everyone to follow these rules and do it the right way, but there's that second option in case, like, he understands there's life happens.
Yeah, that's the way I see it too.
Because he's telling you can still do the Passover just with the unleavened bread and the bitter herbs. Wow.
When I look at that, I almost look at that as just kind of a foreshadowing of kind of the grace of that, with Jesus. Just there's a set of rules and there's laws that they need to be followed, but there are times where, I'm trying to think of how to say this without sounding, grace is given because of what's going on. Not saying that you can just break the law and you're good, but in this situation there was a reason for them not being able to celebrate the Passover, so he gave them another option.
Yeah.
I look at that as sometimes you have people who have a very legalistic view of God, and it's like, hey, I've got these rules, you follow my rules, you follow my laws, or you're done. And I think God's always there with that, with that grace for his people.
Yeah. Well, I also think that, like the enemy's perspective, the first time in that spiritual realm, the things that are opposed to God, as soon as they know, okay, you can't do this, this, or this, and so I'm not saying that they'll do what they can and operate through who they can to create a situation where someone is unclean, trying to war with the Father, so to speak, in that sense. Mm-hmm. And so I think God having an understanding of the things going on in the spiritual realm that we don't even see, that we don't, that have led to being unclean with something like that. He's like, if you don't do this, you'll be cut off from your people. So here is for situations like that. I mean, he judges the heart as well and intention. I don't think back then there was probably too many people going, well, I got a makeup day, so that's you know what I mean. But it's also for the things that, like you were saying, that are out of our control, that happen around us, so that we won't be cut off from those, from others.
Yeah, I mean, and he even puts in verse 13, but if anyone who is clean and is not on a journey and fails to keep the Passover, that person shall be cut off. So he's not just creating just a blind open door policy. It's just, hey, do it how you want. You don't really feel like doing it the first time around, let's do it the second time. You have to, this is how this is supposed to be done. But I create that second time around is, in case these particular scenarios are in place. There's still structure behind it all. It's not a free pass for anyone.
Right.
What? Where was that, Lynn, you were talking about? The herbs in the bread? Oh, there it is. Verse 11. Yeah, I think that it still has the lamb in there.
Yeah, in 12.
Yeah.
Yep. So in other words, go ahead and keep the Passover.
Yeah. Yep. It's a remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Anything else from chapter 9 of Numbers? Okay, what about chapter 10? I bring this up every time that I read it.
The shofar.
Make thee 2 trumpets of silver. Of a whole piece shalt thou make them, that thou mayest use them for the calling of the assembly and for the journeying of the camps. And if you look in Scripture, ram's horns is only mentioned one place, and that's in Joshua for the Battle of Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
So why? I know silver's expensive, but why does everybody want the ram's horn instead of the silver trumpet? It's a rhetorical question. I know we can't answer that, but I think it has more to do with tradition than people want to admit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, the thing is, for shofar, Marla's asking about in Revelation for shofar. Shofar is the Hebrew word for trumpet, right? Yep, Doc's got a good point. I'm sure the horns of the rams were plentiful in those times, and the sound of a silver trumpet was very distinct. They do sound quite different. Yeah, but shofar just means trumpet, and in Joshua it actually specifies ram's horns for the priests. So that's something I am fixated on that I haven't gotten an satisfactory answer to yet. Sorry, Lynn?
Well, so they made the trumpets. I'm wondering what they look like. You know, they
I
showed
think
a
they look
silver
probably
shofar.
like a heraldry trumpet,
A what?
like a heraldry, a salute trumpet, like you see the big long trumpets from where they do like all the fanfare and circumstance for royalty.
Yeah. Okay, that one. That's kind of what came into my mind.
And the only reason we have trumpets that are all short now is because they take that big long part and wrap it, curl it around a couple. Yeah, so it's the same length. It's just twisted. Twisted, man. And then it goes through how the tribes are to march out when they move. It's quite a production.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wonder if they understood like what that meant. I mean, God does everything for a reason. Or God even allows the things that he didn't specifically do to happen to us for a reason. And I think, I don't know, I just get the feeling when reading through that there's it's not a pecking order, but there's a symbol to each a time and like almost like times and seasons, like the way it's like, this is why it doesn't say it here. You got to go first because, but I don't know. I just get a feeling that there's something there into that. Like but I wonder if they understood it.
I wonder if it's just that one time they moved though, because they always camped in the same orientation, right? With those with the three tribes to the north, the three tribes to the east, three tribes to the west, and three tribes to the south, with the priests and Levites in the middle with the tabernacle.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but I also think that, having an order in which they move every time is probably important with that many people. If, because, when the cloud goes away, when it departs, it's time for them to move. You don't want people just sitting around, or you don't want everybody moving at the same time. You're just going to cause chaos. So having a structure behind all of it's probably, I don't know if this is the exact same structure every time, but maybe this is an example of how they went about.
Apparently, Naphtali's always that relative that's running late.
Yeah.
Bringing up the rear.
Yep. Yahushua's Messiah says, what stuck out was the trumpets are sounded at different times for the gathering, and the enemies coming up against the camp. Reminds her of Revelation, which, those trumps are going to be sounded for sure.
You can buy a silver trumpet for $300.
Silver or silver plated?
Silver.
Really?
Yeah.
Great. Angie's going to have words with you later. Yeah.
Sorry, Angie.
Oh, goodness. Anything else from chapter 10? Numbers chapter 10?
Yeah, I wondered why Hobab, is that how you say it? Why he was hesitant to, and this is me thinking, why he was hesitant to go with them at first. Didn't really say. I mean, maybe he just wanted to go home and be around his people, a little homesick. But I just, you know what I mean? Like that's included for a reason, and it just, I don't know. It sticks out to me. Like, why was he hesitant? I don't know.
But looking at that, what do we have here? We have an example here in Old Testament, right? Hobab, the son of Raguel the Midianite, who was Moses' father-in-law. So Hobab is not of the 12 tribes, but what we're seeing here is Moses saying, hey, come on and be grafted in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, because he had to tell him that he would be. I mean, he had to, you know what I mean? Yeah. What God does to us, the same we will do to you.
Right? That was a good question. What about 11? Anybody have something for that? I got a whole bunch for that, actually.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
What do you got?
It's a lot of quail.
Okay, they're already eating manna. Right? It's delicious, tastes like fresh oil. I'm guessing that means olive oil. But verse 4, who shall give us flesh to eat? I don't know what your translation says, Colby. But the
looking for meat to eat.
Meat to eat?
Yeah.
I find it interesting though because it says flesh. And even if you want to look at it as meat, didn't they just leave Egypt with a whole bunch of sheep and cattle and goats and?
Well, I think if you go on down, and he's talking about feeding everyone for an entire month, like Moses goes into how much meat that would be required, and so I know they had just left, but my guess is they didn't have enough with them to sustain the entire people they have, and so that was the whole purpose of the manna, was to keep them sustained, because there's just no way they can sustain that whole large people, the amount of goats and sheep they had with them.
Right. But then down in 33 and 34, while the flesh was yet between their teeth ere it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord was kindled against the people, and the Lord smote the people with a very great plague. And 34, and he called the name of that place Kilbrath Hatavah, because there they buried the people that lusted. So it wasn't everybody.
Yeah.
That was saying, we want meat or we want flesh.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I was looking over the fish that cost nothing. Is it verse 4? The fish that cost nothing, the cucumbers, the melons, and the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. Which I hope they didn't eat all that together, but it's like it's not that they didn't have anything to eat. They said, but now our strength is dried up, and there's nothing at all but this manna to look at. So they weren't starving. It was more of well, this isn't good. I'm tired of this. I'm sick of this. We could have went back and worked for these people for free, but they had fancy food. It's like one of those things. I don't know. I was picturing when I was kind of meditating on this. I was thinking about the people that will sort of sell out. I mean, the easiest example of that is like Hollywood. People that won't talk about Jesus or look the other way, or will support something that they necessarily don't believe in because of the fame and the money and the fancy things they get. And that, it just reminded me of that, when it's like we could have had fish and garlic, I mean, sure, they beat people, when they were too old to work, and every now and then they'd kill all the males, but we could have had that great food back there, and it's like they were almost rejecting. They were rejecting what God had provided for them. So when it says that he struck those that lusted with a plague, that's pretty accurate. They were lusting after the thing outside of what God was providing.
Yeah, and it was clearly the people that were complaining, and typically you find this a lot. It's typically a vocal minority. You have people that the whole of people may believe one thing, but you have a small group that's just going to be loud and complain and make a scene about everything. And so, I mean, it's probably loud enough for Moses was tired of hearing it. Thanks to the Lord. Lord says, okay, we're going to do something about it. And so, but then even look at like how this all came down. The Lord, had a wind spring up that brought quail from the sea, and so they fell beside the camp. I mean, when I hear that, it kind of tells me they just died and fell from the sky. And I think just general rule of thumb is you don't eat dead. You have to kill it and then you process it. You don't just find something dead and then eat it, because you could typically get disease from that. So you have people who are just naysayers. They want meat. They're going to complain, and suddenly they find so much meat just dead by the camp. They start making it, and common sense would tell you that's not the way to go about it. And the Lord would tell them that's not the way to go about it. They did it anyway, and so the plague came upon them, and those are the ones that were wiped out.
Right. And that's a good point about the dead stuff. That was I was just thinking. That's a lot of dead animals around there. And reading through it, I wasn't even thinking about not eat, not eating that which is already just dead around there. But picturing it, I think like whenever you said be careful what you wish for, I'm pretty sure that and just the way that I see it, that these people that saw this as a good thing, like were reveling in it, like they were getting it and overindulging themselves and all this quail. And it wasn't until after they had consumed that thing that they wanted that the plague began. They got exactly what they asked for, but the price, they were looking at, I don't want what you have, God. I want something better. And so, yeah.
And it is a lot too.
Yeah.
I looked it up fairly recently, but a homer is
220 liters.
how much?
220 liters or 60.
It's quite a bit.
Didn't it say 10 homers though?
Yeah, and that guy got 10 homers.
Yeah, or about 6 bushels.
There you go. That's what I was looking for, like a bushel. Now everybody's saying, "What's a bushel?"
Apples, you'll know.
Yep. It's one of those wicker baskets with the 2 handles on the side. You get it when you go to pick apples.
Yeah, it's a lot of quail.
Yep, that is
60 bushels each.
That's a crazy amount. And then also talking about that, there's a lot of talk about a second Exodus, and I can see that now. People complaining about how horrible life is. All I do is struggle and work to pay rent and pay my, whatever, my student loans and et cetera, et cetera. And then, okay, you're free, go. And they go, and then this stinks. I used to be able to get Taco Bell every day for just pennies. It was delicious. Or whatever, McDonald's, something quick and easy. Okay, here's your dead quail.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody got something else? Chapter 11? And what about chapter 12?
Very
That's where it is.
I was just thinking, I was picturing, I don't know if I don't recall, I know they had a bit, cloud of smoke by day or like cloud during the day and fire at night. And reading through this, what stuck out at me was that after God spoke and he was angry, the cloud left. And just the way that I pictured it in my head, I don't know if that had ever happened before. I'm not sure. I just don't recall. And the way I had it envisioned, that's a scary. And from that perspective, to not only be all of a sudden leprous and diseased after God was angry because of all this. I want to be I want to be the one. I want to be the one. And then he goes away, and then you realize that you're leprous. That's I don't know. Just the visual of that is terrifying. So I don't know. I was envisioning it in my head while we were reading it. And yeah, I don't have like a closing thought to that. That's pretty scary.
What about verse 1? They spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman that he had married. Now, you don't get a lot from that verse right there. It's the only spot it's mentioned in canonized scripture.
Well, we know her dad is Hobab.
Hobab was the son of his father-in-law,
Was his father-in-law, the son of Raguel, the Midianite.
Raguel. But Raguel is
Raguel is the father-in-law.
Raguel is the father-in-law, but Raguel is also, is that another name for, I'm drawing a blank, the other name for his father-in-law?
So, wait. So the Midianite is an Ethiopian?
Jethro, that's who I'm thinking of,
Oh, yeah, Jethro.
right?
Yep.
Remember Jethro?
Yep.
And his daughter.
That is...
So are they the same person? Or is one of them the father-in-law or the father of the Ethiopian woman?
I know. How many wives did he have?
I know. I don't know. But we know of at least 2. So all right. What about Zechariah? What do we got? What do we have in Zechariah? Getting my Bibles mixed up here. Starting at, what was it, chapter 2:13? You're right, this is what we were talking about with the 7 candlesticks, and also I believe it's implied he's going to be getting those new garments are going to be linen, right? Although it doesn't spell it out there. Oops. Jasmine says, such a different culture, they wouldn't be able to handle 2 American women at once.
Yes.
I would say so. So then Zechariah 4 is where it talks about the candlestick. The 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, that kind of reminded me of in Ecclesiastes, talking about the silver cord. When the silver cord is cut. So the 7 lamps is how they're getting those pipes is how they're getting their fuel. Their oil to burn.
Are they getting the oil from the olive trees?
Good question.
There is something about the 2 olive trees and what they stand for, and I can't remember now.
Well, in Revelation, the 2 olive trees are the 2 witnesses.
True that, and there's
Yeah, it's
something
mentioned.
else. Yes, but there's
What is that?
also something
10?
else.
No, 11.
I'm gonna write it down.
Yep. 11, 3 and 4 in Revelation, and I will give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. So, 4 is where we were. Colby, I'm curious, in verse 10 of 4, does yours say just say plumb, or does it say plummet?
Verse 10, let's see.
Of Zechariah 4.
Plumb. See the plumb line.
Plumb line? Yeah.
Yeah.
Plumb line, plummet, plumb bob. All right. Doesn't seem like everybody's jumping on that one. What about Matthew chapter 14?
Hang on. Well, let me say one thing. I didn't want to end it because I thought this was
Okay.
just funny. But Chop kept whining and whining and whining, and I had to mute my microphone. And then we switched over to Zechariah, and you went, "Be silent, all flesh." Then he went and laid down. I just thought that was funny. Anyway, let's go to Matthew.
All flesh be silent.
Yeah, he settled down after that. Though.
Yeah. Raised up out of his holy habitation. All right, Matthew, what was it, 14?
Yep.
I think.
14 through 21.
You know, there's so much packed in these short verses, too, these short sections.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what I thought, it came to me for the first time I ever really thought about it was, did you notice there were 12 baskets of leftover fragments? And so that reminded me of the remnant of the 12 tribes. Pretty cool.
And it's more than they put out.
Yeah.
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 It's more than left from them.
So cool.
Okay, now who's the fish? Who are the fish? Come on.
Ooh, the fish.
You're on a roll, Lynn.
Nuh-uh. No, just that part I got. I don't know about the fish yet.
I found 21 interesting. They that had eaten were about 5,000 men, beside women and children. So what is that? At least another 50% higher, 7,500 maybe?
Yeah.
Another 2,000?
Probably more than that. If you're thinking half men, half women-ish, plus the children, which could be men or boys and girls.
That'd be between 10 and 15,000.
Well, I was thinking, right? That where he tells that Elijah that I have a remnant of 7,000 that have not bowed a knee to Baal. I don't know. We don't. All we know the number for certain is 5,000.
Right.
The rest we're just guessing, or at least I am.
And I would say that's a conservative number because the family structure was different back then. Like people were having more babies, and yeah, I mean, but again, we're just guessing, so there's no way to know.
Howdy, big Kakawate Kahuna. No, that's actually a real person in the chat. Yeah.
Actually, I have enough trouble pronouncing some of the names in the Bible.
Right. Now, the other thing I was wondering about this. Were these 2 fishes already prepared?
Yeah, because it was his lunch basket, wasn't it? Wasn't he taking it home?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, because he asked the disciples, right? We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. So, I mean, was it smoked fish? Does anybody know about their dietary, how they prepared that stuff? Smoked fish, dried fish, grilled, sushi. I know that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If you had to carry it with you without refrigeration, you would want to prepare it so that it wouldn't be gross after a while.
So it'd be salted and smoked or something.
Probably, because probably salted and dried out some way, like fish jerky.
Eee.
What's wrong with fish jerky?
It's fishy.
Cats love it.
Here you can actually get it. It's something that they sell in the Mexican stores, the Mexican markets. Is dried fish
With
and
eyes.
dried shrimp.
Yeah.
Bag of shrimp powder.
El super. Sorry.
Yeah.
I will say again, back to the visual of it. There was a pastor preaching on it locally here one time, and sometimes I just thinking about. He was saying how he thought that it was done in his perspective, because I've seen cartoons where he just started pouring fish out the basket. You know, when I was a kid, and it was a big like production. But what this pastor was saying, and how I've often envisioned it, was him breaking the bread and passing a little bit and breaking it and passing it, and then that person, you know, it was like a sharing, goes back to that sense of community, and somehow it multiplied through the love and the sharing of one another of all these thousands of people, and before they knew it, everybody had bread and fish in their hand, and so I just thought that was neat. I'm not taking it away that like Jesus was the one doing it, but it was in that love and you know, caringness for others that he allowed it to be multiplied, you know, to feed everyone. And I don't know, I just thought that was just a neat visual on it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean they have this particular feeding of the 5,000 through all the Gospels. We look at in John chapter 6, they give a little more context as to what was going on. It says, verse 4, it says, "Now the Passover, the feast of Jews, was at hand. lifting up his eyes, then and seeing that a large crowd was coming towards him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where do we buy bread so that these people may eat?" And so it just in the context of it, Passover was at hand, and they're looking to buy bread so they can make sure that everyone there is able to partake. And then they said they found a boy who had 5 loaves on him and 2 fish. Now it doesn't say, it doesn't give any more context than that as to how any of that was prepared, whether that was his lunch or if he had that prepared for Passover, or but that does give a little more context as to this particular passage.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And he blessed it first.
Yep.
Yes,
That's important.
it is. Yeah, it definitely is.
There we go. All right. Looks like we got that covered. So what else does anybody have? What have you been thinking about this week? What have you been doing? Wow. We haven't been busy.
I've been speechless. Yeah, so
I've
many.
been on kitten duty. That's it. And I see that Landon's been painting.
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, I just got most of the paint off of my hands. Yeah, I've not a whole lot going on. Spending a lot of time in my mind, I guess. Just think, which is with with the Father. Just I don't know. I think a lot. That's kind of But yeah, not a whole lot. How about yourself, bud?
Just been settling in. Yep. Everybody. Open question to everybody in chat as well.
Ashley and I were able to reconnect with some old friends this week, which was good. They were some friends from church we had previously been going to, and we had been fairly torn just connecting with some of the old friends we had at church, just because we've broken away from some of the traditional church and churchy type things. But it was good to connect with them. We're able to just start building relationships again, because ultimately we're all in this together, and the answer is not just ignoring people. The answer is to talk to them and be a testimony, a walking testimony. So that's what we're kind of working through that right now. It's a good week though.
Awesome.
Right? How did they take that? You're giving them a testimony.
I mean, we're in kind of some of the process, the relationship rebuilding stage. So just kind of reignite things again, but it's good because there was no judgment through any of this. I mean, they look at the church in a different way than we do, but we're able to, because our relationship, kind of start talking to each other about, where we stand on things. So it's been good. It's going to be more of a process. We can't just dive right in and just start telling them this is the way we think you should do it. It's more of we want to try to keep that conversation open.
Yep. Small pieces here and there. That helps. Well, that's cool. Did they seem happy to get back together with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're still going to church, or?
Yeah.
Actually, the husband, his name is Alex, and he's the assistant pastor.
Yep.
Assistant pastor.
Yeah.
Howdy, Matt. Matt says, I've tried to reconnect with old church friends. Seems not to work.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
it's tough. I mean, it's again, we don't want to go in there with the mindset that we know better than they do. You go in there with the mindset of understanding that again, we're on the same team. We have some different views on how the church has progressed, but it takes time to rebuild those relationships without that kind of attacking kind of mentality. Because if you go in too strong, a lot of times people get defensive because this is all they've known their entire life, particularly in the South. I mean, the South is a very, I don't know, very touchy when it comes to how the church is run and how people integrate within the church. Everyone goes to church, regardless of what you believe.
Yeah, I think that's wise. I've I've I haven't really tried to connect with too many of my old church members because I don't know. I went back to a few of them, and some people just didn't seem interested. But I mean, when I talked to some of the guys at work that I know go to church about some of my beliefs, and I think that it's a lot easier to have a conversation when you're telling someone this is why I believe this, instead of a you need to do it this way like I'm doing it. You know what I mean? I think it's wise to be open about when I try to explain myself, I just give them examples of why I believe what I do. And even with some of the points that they bring up, and I'm like, it's just a conversation. I'll say, well, this is like when it comes to the foods and stuff, or things like that. But once you get to where you're like, you have to do this way, you know what I mean. You're forcing religion on someone, and I think which you're doing it, you're handling it the right way, the way you explained it.
Yeah, ultimately, I go back to a couple things. One, it's a culture shift for some people. Like, I mean, I know even me. I grew up in Southern Baptist Church my entire life, and I mean, these things are never taught. You're taught a certain way of right and wrong, and I mean, even growing up, like I was never told the Old Testament was wrong. I was never told that it was no longer part of the Bible. It was all part of it, but it just wasn't focused on the same way it is now. And so, or the way we look at it now. And so, it's. I think I just need to. I am approaching this of I was in their shoes once. I mean, even for instance, I mean, Ashley had a change of this kind of mindset before I did, and it took me a while to kind of come around to it and just change my whole mindset. And so it's more of that's the approach I'm trying to take, and rather than just kind of cut relationships and walk away, which would definitely be the easy thing to do, but there's nowhere in Scripture it says, "Hey, let's do the easy thing." It's the difficult thing, and at times it means I may have to suffer, and I may have to put aside my own pride, just to reach out to people and try to relay the message that I feel that not as I feel that when I read the Scripture that I see is pretty clear as day, about our eating habits and the way we look at the Sabbath. Like those are things that are very that I see is very clear, but I've been there in the shoes of people who culturally see things differently, still consider themselves Christians, and granted, they see Jesus as their only Lord and Savior and their only way to heaven, so they have that part down. It's getting the other parts for them people to understand it. It's just a process.
Yeah. I was gonna say I forgot. I was gonna add something to it, but it slipped my mind. Yeah. The hardening of the heart. That's it. You made me think of that. Whenever you said, the easy thing to do would be to be like, well, fine, I just won't develop a relationship with you or try to even get you to look. You know what I mean? And just be like, whatever. I'm gonna just, and it made me think the person that does that is hardening their heart towards those that we're called to love,
Yep.
versus presenting information in a loving way with love, in relationships that you already are grounded in. And so that person either prays for wisdom and understanding, or they harden their heart. But to walk away from it yourself would be hardening your own heart, and the Father doesn't really appreciate that. So it just, I was just, it made me think of that. Yeah, it is a process, and a lot of people are like, when I talk to the guys at work about some of the stuff, and that I don't do Christmas or Easter, they go into the way they were raised. I get that it is a culture. When you've been raised in, this is what we believe, and then you meet someone else who also believes in Jesus, but they don't necessarily celebrate some of the same holidays, and don't eat some of the same foods, and then take other specific days off during the year but they're like, but you're not Jewish, it so it does kind of pique their interest a little bit, but it's definitely, yeah, it's you're doing it the right way. Sounds like you are.
And then there's I can see Matt's side of it too, though, where you don't mind spending time with people, and you're not going to lie about why you're doing things a certain way. But they get offended. Oh, so you're better than me because you're not eating ham or bacon? Or no, I didn't say that. I just said, I think it's unclean. I'm not eating it. Oh, so now we're filthy? Yeah. No.
So I think again, it just comes down to how you treat these people. Again, like we've all been there. We've lived our life that way before, and if it wasn't for God's grace, we wouldn't be in a situation where we've come to see that. Look, there is certain foods that are unclean, and there's certain holidays that are not holidays that need to be celebrated. They're man-made traditions, and it's only through God's grace we come to this insight, this knowledge that it's a way of approaching people in love. Again, you don't just give in to what they have to say. And we're dealing with that right now. I mean, we've got family members who get super offended because we don't want to eat, bacon. I mean, we live in South Carolina. Bacon bacon's on everything, but we don't celebrate Christmas and Easter, and like we have a child that we have grandparents that want to buy things for her, and we have to say no. And it's again, we try to make sure that we're approaching everything in a loving manner when we do it, and putting our pride aside. Like when they get offended and want to attack back at us, just understanding, look, this is their way of lashing because this is all they've ever been. And so we're just working it. I take my pride, put it aside, because at the end of the day, it's not about me. I'm trying to follow the scripture, and eventually I continue to push through this, and hopefully they're going to see a change, and they're going to understand where we're coming from through it all. But we want to try to reconnect with the people within the church, because we think there's great people that, again, if no one talks to them, if everyone shuts down and says, you know what, we know better, we're not going to do this, we're not going to talk to you, then the church isn't going to change. And so that's kind of, we've taken this week to try to push back on that. And
yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, I speak a lot in some of my videos about how isolated I feel, and I believe that that's definitely by design on a spiritual level. And there are issues, like just problems with life, like me working on my truck and things that I'm doing to combat that and fix it. But we're not called to learn a truth and then build a moat around the house and just lock ourselves in. It's to spread the good news and to teach what we know, or at the very least discuss it with other believers. Not that they're wrong, but there are certain things that they might not understand yet. No, us included. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but it's a good thing to try to make a connection in this day and age.
Yep. And I think I believe ultimately, we should still talk to them, because how are they going to hear that call to change? And I don't believe we're supposed to go back and proselytize churches necessarily, but if we stay in contact with them, other people can more easily hear that call to come out from among her or among them. I see Lynn moving and talking, and she's muted. No?
I'm not talking. I'm just
Oh, okay.
head.
One thing I did get that angry, that I guess I'd just call it the angry bacon. One time I did not expect that. We were having a barbecue. It was not imposing, but I don't eat certain foods, so I brought turkey bacon, and they were like, "Get that out of my house!" I'm like, "What? But you got bacon? I want bacon because they, it's a spiritual thing. You just got to pray for them. But I didn't expect it's not bacon. I just didn't expect that. But yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Been there, done that. Yep. Or I tried my recipe different this year by adding bacon. That explains the flavor and the projectile vomiting.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
Well,
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I do see. I mean, we know, like, psychologically, if we understand their principalities and all these things, like we're it's a constant battle. But I have seen. I really try and look at whenever people act negatively towards me, like I look at it or my best understanding of it in a spiritual manner. And just as an example, one time, a family member made some potato soup, and then they were fully aware there were certain foods that I don't eat. When they have like the crawfish boils and stuff, I go get other food. I mean, they knew that the pig was a no for me, and and I even asked if it was clean, if they had added pork to it, and they said, "Oh, no, there's no pork in there." So anyway, I get it. I go back for seconds. And I went to throw my napkin in the trash, and it was mostly potatoes and homemade soup, but they had added some mashed potatoes from a Winn-Dixie, and in it was mashed potatoes with bacon. And I walked up to him. I said, "Look, it was delicious. I had a second bowl, but I would appreciate it, maybe next time if you're gonna add something with bacon in it, if you just please let me know." And I think it tasted fine. It was great, but please let me know. And the sense of joy on their face, it wasn't a good thing. Like it was like an evil, like I don't know. It was like they were happy that. I don't know how to explain it, but the look on their face was that of like they got pleasure out of seeing that I did something that I believed to be wrong. But I was trying to say it in a nice way so I didn't insult their cooking. And so on a spiritual level, we really do. I mean, we're fighting with stuff. Now I could go back and say that family member is an evil person and judge them. But that's not, they don't have a reason to feel that way about me. And I see it as these spirits and principalities, they really will operate through. I don't know why they reacted that way, but they really will operate through whoever they can, however they can. And for some reason in that moment, even though I don't think that person is an evil, mean elder in my family, it did seem to bring them a type of like a happiness. And so I'm just using that to give an example of not that person, but the spirits that we fight against, because I could physically see them sort of change in that moment, not forever, but just in that moment. And yeah, it's just strange. It's strange.
I believe I've seen that on other people, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Landon. Thank you, Colby. Thank you, Ashley. I'm going to pray us out if you don't mind.
Excellent.
Yes,
Did
buddy.
they freeze?
No.
Oh, you're there. Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you very much for this opportunity to come together in fellowship with one another and everybody that has heard the call to come and join you in the blood of your Son to repentance from sin that is transgression of your law, and to be one with you, which is superbly awesome. We don't deserve it. You know we don't deserve it. We know we don't deserve it, but we thank you for it, for this free gift that you have given us, this opportunity to be with you. And we know that it is you that opens eyes to see your word, and ears to hear your word, and to have understanding. And it's you that gives that discernment. And we just ask that you make us good vessels to serve as delivering your word. And we thank you for that. Bless everyone here with us today and in the future. We thank you. We love you. In Jesus, Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Abba, add Jasmine to that too, please. Amen. Sorry it was late, Jasmine. But we will pray. Thank you, everybody. And we will be back next time. Anybody, if you want to read, shoot me an email. If any of you four want to read again, just let me know. You did awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That homeschooling is working great. So, all right. Anyways, love you all, and we will see you next time. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.